The secret confrontation, the relationship between Michael, Victor, and the secrets behind Aristotle. In a dark room, only the faint light from the table lamp shines on Michael Baldwin's desk. He is sitting across from Victor Newman, who is always careful with his words. The conversation is going into new depths, with secrets that not everyone can easily face. Although both are powerful figures in the world of Genoa City, this time they are caught in a power play that they could not have foreseen. Guessing the man behind the curtain, Victor, the head of Newman Enterprises, begins to dissect theories about who the Aristotle behind the psychological manipulation of Damien, Nate Hastings, and Lily Winters is. I think it might be Tucker, Victor says firmly. The deep animosity between Tucker and Jack Abbott was undeniable, and Victor knew that Tucker's jealousy and hatred of Jack could be a powerful motivator. Michael listened, but he knew that the matter was much more complicated. The appearance of Aristotle, a mysterious figure that few knew much about, had breathed new life into the already tense relations in Genoa City. No one really knew who he was, but Michael knew that this man could turn everything upside down. Bad news and threats from an executive. Michael abruptly changed the subject, bad news that he had to face. One of the executives assigned to the task. Matheson, perhaps, he was getting nervous and demanding more money. Otherwise, he threatened to reveal everything about the conspiracy. Victor heard this and anger quickly appeared in his eyes. No one is threatening me, Michael, Victor said, his voice as hard as steel. If that Matheson guy wants to play this game, I'll show him who's really in charge. Michael knew he had to act quickly or things would fall into chaos. But the big question remained, what was he really threatening? And why would a CEO be so reckless? Aristotle Dumas and the secrets of the past. The conversation took a different turn. Michael, always cautious about revealing information, decided to reveal something few people knew. I know something you might not expect, Michael began. Damien is Nate Hastings' half-brother. Michael's words caught Victor's attention. And so things began to become clearer. If Damien really was Nate's brother, then his motives and actions became even more suspicious. It turns out that this secret has been hidden for a long time, and now it is being exposed in the bright light. Michael continued, Aristotle Dumas, the man we are talking about, has been in contact with Billy Abbott. Although I don't know why, it may be an important step in his plan. Victor's suspicions grew even more as he listened. Aristotle Dumas seemed to be a mysterious figure with unexpected connections. However, Victor was not easily fooled. He sensed that Aristotle was playing a clever game and he had to be more alert than ever. Strange similarities between Aristotle and Tucker. Victor sat there for a while, thinking about all the information Michael had just revealed. Suddenly, something exploded in his mind. Arabesque, Victor whispered. Aristotle Dumas's company. And Glissade. Tucker's old company. The names are too similar. Could they be the same person? This realization shocked Victor. It turned out that Tucker and Aristotle could be the same person, or at least they were closely related. This explained why Aristotle could manipulate people like Damien and Nate. Tucker, with his relentless ambition, might have sought to restore his power by manipulating people like Aristotle to achieve his goals. Michael looked at Victor and saw the change in his expression. Victor was definitely thinking about this very seriously. What do you think about this? Michael asked, feeling both curious and worried. Victor thought for a moment, then replied in a calm but authoritative voice, I won't let anyone manipulate me. If Aristotle and Tucker are really the same person, I will make them pay. The conversation between Victor and Michael is not simply about plans and plots. This is a battle between powerful men who are willing to do anything to protect their position in this turbulent world. Aristotle, with his dark secrets, is just a part of the power game that Victor and the others are participating in. However, what they do not realize is that a monster is slowly emerging, and it will not stop until it achieves its goals. With his intelligence and determination, Victor Newman will certainly not be defeated easily. However, the relationship between Aristotle, Tucker, and people like Billy Abbott are just pawns in a larger game that they have not yet seen. Can Victor win this war? Only time will tell. In the heart of Genoa, where power and manipulation seek to dominate every corner, there are hidden forces that even the most powerful must be wary of. One of them is Aristotle Dumas, a name few know, but the intrigues he weaves have far-reaching implications for all the powerful families in the city. And even Victor Newman, the most powerful man in the city, cannot sit still as Aristotle's plans begin to unfold. Michael reveals secret relationships on a tense afternoon. Michael Baldwin, Victor's advisor and right-hand man, sits across from his boss. The silence in the room adds to the tension. Michael decides to share an important piece of information he has gathered, even though he knows it will complicate the confrontation. "Victor, I have news you need to know," Michael began, but he didn't say it right away, letting it linger for the sake of drama. Victor looked at him, his eyes never leaving Michael's expression, whom he trusted, even though he sometimes seemed overly cautious. "Aristotle Dumas has been in contact with Billy Abbott," Michael said, his eyes showing concern. "Although I don't know why, it seems that Billy is involved in some kind of relationship with Aristotle." Victor's lips curled slightly, but suspicion was clear in his eyes. Billy Abbott, who was always looking for ways to gain power, was the brother of Ashley Abbott, one of the closest people to the Newman family. If Billy was involved with Aristotle, it meant that some strategy of the Abbott family was gradually being revealed. This could pose serious threats to the Newman family, something Victor could not afford to let happen. "Aristotle is playing a game we don't fully understand," Victor mused. "He's showing us the cards he wants us to see, but is he showing us other cards, things we don't know?" The Aristotle-Tucker connection. An unpredictable danger soon, the conversation turned to a more sensitive topic. Michael continued to explore the relationship between Aristotle and Tucker McCall, a man Victor had never taken lightly. Aristotle's company, Arabesque, is very similar to Glissade, the company Tucker used to own, Michael said, the connection between the two names undeniable. Victor immediately recognized the strange coincidence. If Tucker and Aristotle were related, or even the same person, it meant a very big threat was approaching. Tucker, who has a deep grudge against the Abbott family and is always looking to seize power, may now be working with Aristotle to create a plot against the Newman family. "We have to be careful," Victor warns, his eyes turning cold. "If Tucker and Aristotle are really the same person, we have to look at their every move." Michael can't help but agree, but he knows that finding out who Aristotle really is will be a difficult task. And linking everything together, from Billy Abbott to Tucker to Aristotle, only complicates the situation. A connection revealed. Is Tucker trying to win Ashley back? When Michael reveals that Billy Abbott is actually Ashley Abbott's brother, Victor doesn't seem too surprised, but the connection between Billy and Aristotle seems to complicate the relationship even more. Is Tucker trying to win Ashley back? Michael asks, his eyes filled with concern. This could set off a battle not only for power but also for affection, as Ashley could become a pawn in a larger conspiracy that Tucker and Aristotle are pursuing. Victor didn't respond immediately. Instead, he sat in silence, thinking about everything that had happened between Tucker and Ashley over the years. A broken relationship, old grudges, and unresolved secrets. Ashley might not realize that she was becoming a target in a power struggle that those around her were engaged in. The connections continue to strengthen. Michael continues to explore the connections between Aristotle and the people involved. Aristotle seems to have a special interest in the Winters family and Audra Charles, who is currently dating Nate Hastings. These connections could be important pieces in a larger scheme, Michael notes. Victor nods, realizing that Aristotle's attempts to influence the people around Nate Hastings, one of the Winters sons, could be part of a larger conspiracy he is working on. Audra Charles, who has had shady connections, is now an important target in Aristotle's eyes. If these connections can be exploited, Victor will have to act quickly before further events occur. Nikki and her concerns revealed. When Nikki Newman returns home, she quickly realizes that something is wrong. She looked at Michael sharply, but Michael quickly dodged her question. "Victor needs someone to look out for him," he said shortly. Nikki was not satisfied with this answer. She knew that Michael was trying to hide something. After Michael left, Nikki decided to talk to Victor about her concerns. "Victor, I can't help but worry. This could have serious consequences for our family," Nikki said in a calm but worried voice. Victor just smiled slightly, dismissing Nikki's concerns. "There's nothing to worry about, Nikki. I know what I'm doing." But even though Victor tried to appear calm, he knew deep down that things weren't as easy as he thought. Michael, Lauren, and Nikki all had very real concerns, and if he didn't act quickly, the threats would get out of hand. Lauren and her worrying predictions. After meeting Lauren, she couldn't help but express her predictions about the situation. "Victor, I feel like you're going too far," Lauren warned. "We can't keep gambling with fate like this." Victor felt a little worried, but he also knew that Lauren's words couldn't be taken lightly. He would have to act more cautiously, but could he stop these plots before they threatened the Newman family? Genoa City has always been a place full of intrigue and power schemes, where those who hold the key to success face each other in a ruthless battle of wits. And in this battle, Victor Newman, the powerful boss of the Newman family, is facing a great suspicion. Could Tucker McCall, his old friend turned rival, be the mastermind behind a huge conspiracy named Aristotle Dumas? The story begins at the headquarters of Newman Enterprises, where Victor is constantly probing and vigilant, but also not forgetting to arrange his own plans. Suspicions about Tucker and new assessments. Victor Newman, a powerful man who is not easily deceived, has begun to realize a strange connection between Tucker McCall and Aristotle Dumas. In his mind, a question constantly rings out: is Tucker Aristotle Dumas? The similarities in strategy, method of action, and Tucker's influence in the Abbott family's affairs make Victor unable to help but suspect. He understood that if Tucker was really behind Aristotle, things would become much more complicated. In addition, Victor's need to protect his family and the Newman Empire also made him even more worried. Although Tucker seemed to have found a way to return to challenge the Newman family, his ultimate goal was not simply to regain power but could be to weaken the Newman family from within. And if this was Aristotle's plot, things would become even more dangerous. Jack and Kyle Abbott's revenge plan. However, in another dark corner of Genoa City, another plot was being planned. Jack Abbott, who has always been a sophisticated strategist in protecting his interests, has embarked on a cunning revenge plan with his son Kyle. Both are looking for ways to weaken the Newman family, especially Victor, who has created so much turmoil in their lives. And the target they are aiming for is none other than Victor and his empire. One afternoon when Jack and Tracy Abbott were talking on the phone, Jack gave them a stern warning. "Tracy, you are not to see Alan Laurent alone if he comes home as scheduled," Jack said, his voice strained. "He is not who you think he is, and if anything happens, we cannot predict the consequences." Tracy, despite her wedding preparations, could sense the worry in Jack's voice. She had no idea what dangers Alan Laurent, aka Martin Laurent, could pose, but she could not deny the feeling in her heart. It seemed that Jack was afraid of something even greater than she had thought. A breakthrough in Kyle and Jack's relationship. After the phone call with Tracy, Jack met Kyle again at the office. Although Jack tried to keep his cool, Kyle could not help but notice the confusion in his eyes. The feeling that something was wrong made Kyle curious. Jack, however, did not let Kyle get too close to the issue. Instead, he turned the conversation to business, as if to distract his son. "Kyle, can you help me with this problem?" Jack asked, his eyes fixed on his son. "There's an employee named Matheson in the company who's causing trouble. He's been asking questions about the product launch that are outside his purview." Kyle, though sensing something was wrong, couldn't refuse the assignment. He knew Jack was looking for a quick solution, and that this would help them consolidate their power within the Abbott family. But it was during this conversation that Kyle realized that things might not be as simple as a company issue. As Jack continued to learn about Matheson, he suddenly remembered an important detail. Previously, when he worked for Victor, Kyle had been assigned to look into problematic employees in Victor's company. This surprised Kyle, as it brought back a memory he had tried to forget. How could an employee in his own company cause the same suspicions that had happened in the past? Jack and Kyle realized that if Victor had asked Kyle to look into employees like Matheson, then it was very possible that Victor had placed spies in the Abbott family company. This created a connection that they could not ignore. Jack began to consider the possibility that Victor had not only placed people in his company, but had also been monitoring their movements all along. "There are definitely spies in our company," Kyle said. "We have to find out who the people are working for Victor and what they are asking for." Counterattack plan. Turning the tables with growing concerns about Victor's spies, Jack and Kyle decided to launch a counterattack strategy. They wanted to not only find the infiltrators, but also turn the tables, making these executives turn on them instead of loyal to Victor. To do this, they needed a large sum of hidden secrets. Diane and Tracy's encounter. The story begins in a quiet cafe in Genoa City, where Tracy Abbott is sitting alone, quietly staring out the window. Despite her strong spirit, Tracy cannot hide her anxiety today. Her eyes are tense, and every little movement cannot hide the feeling of insecurity that is invading her heart. Tracy cannot escape the thought of her upcoming wedding to Alain Laurent, the man she believes is the love of her life. But something is not right, and she senses that things will not be as easy as she thought. When Diane Jenkins stumbles into the cafe and sees Tracy sitting alone, she can't help but join her. Diane, despite her past strained relationships with the Abbott family, has always made herself attractive and approachable. This time, Diane didn't just want to chat, but she had a deeper purpose, a curiosity that was urging her to find out what Tracy was hiding. An emotional call and promises outside the coffee shop. Tracy walked quickly outside, holding the phone in her hand. She didn't need to look at the screen to know it was a call from Alan. Her heart beat faster when she heard his familiar voice. "Tracy, I sent wildflowers to your room. You're still my wildflowers, right?" After the call, Tracy returned to the cafe, but this time, she was no longer as calm as before. She felt heavy, as if an invisible burden was pressing down on her heart. When she sat down, Diane quickly noticed the change in Tracy. "Is there something wrong with Alan?" Diane asked, unable to hide her concern. Tracy looked at Diane, but she couldn't answer right away. The sadness in her heart couldn't be hidden. Diane, with her full life experience, couldn't help but realize that there was some suspicion hanging over Tracy's upcoming wedding. She began to suspect that there was something fishy about the relationship between Tracy and Alan. She couldn't imagine that maybe Alan wasn't who Tracy thought he was, or maybe their connection wasn't quite what she expected. Lauren's concerns and the confrontation with Nikki. Meanwhile, in another corner of the city, Lauren Fenmore was chatting with Nikki Newman. Both women were well versed in the complexities of relationships and betrayal, but this time, Lauren had a request that couldn't have been more gentle. She looked at Nikki with a serious, worried look in her eyes. "Nikki, I know this is hard, but I need you to do something you've never done before. I need you to betray Victor's trust for Michael's sake," Lauren said, her voice heavy but not lacking in conviction. Michael, reluctant to say it, eventually admitted to Lauren that the problems involved Jack Abbott and Jabot. However, he could not reveal too many details about the project. Lauren understood that this was a big deal, and that it involved more than just work, but also the impact it could have on Michael's relationship with Victor. Nikki didn't know much about these relationships other than that there had been long-standing tension between Victor and Jack, especially after Jack had taken medication to help her recover from her alcoholism. However, she felt a greater concern about Michael's loyalty to Victor. "Michael, he can't keep living in Victor's shadow," Lauren said, worried. "He can't survive this fall without freeing himself." Worries and final decisions. Lauren left the meeting in a troubled mood. She can't help but think about the price Michael will pay if he continues to pursue this project without overcoming his inner conflicts. Will Michael be able to escape Victor's shadow and find his own path?